It's no secret that Dragapult is one of the best decks in the Pokemon TCG. It's near the top of most tier lists and is heavily represented at regional tournaments. But with some cards rotating out of the standard format at the end of the month and new cards being introduced, we're starting to see some changes. In our current state, a lot of decks want to evolve fast with Rare Candy and include a Sparkling Crystal as an A-Spec to make sure you're attacking as early as turn 2. But as new cards like Budew or Wall Pokemon begin to slow things down, we're seeing some serious creativity in the Japanese City League tournaments around how the deck is being used. Needing both fire and psychic energy for Phantom Dive synergizes really well with some good attackers and draw engines. For example, this list includes Charizard. Charizard's great for accelerating a fire energy to Dragapult in the beginning, as well as doing big damage to take heavy knockouts towards the end of the game. With possible item lock and a slower start to games in the post-rotation world, we can't always count on a Rare Candy evolution and a fully evolved Dragapult by turn 2. This opens the door to substitute other game-changing A-Specs for later in the game, like Unfair Stamp, instead of Sparkling Crystal. Another list that was pretty eye-catching was this one, with both Xatu and Munkidori. I'm not sure Dragapult needs the additional draw support with both Drakloak and Fezandipiti already present in the deck, but this one won a City League tournament, so there might be something here. Munkidori seems to be one of the more impactful cards at the moment, so I don't hate trying to fit it in some way. There's even a version of this deck with Iron Thorns that tries to stall a little bit to set up, so instead of using Budew, they put an Iron Thorns into the active spot so none of your abilities work, so that's also an option. Personally, I think this list looks to be the most consistent, and that's backed up by results in recent City League tournaments. And I like how straightforward this one is. One of the criticisms on a deck I played previously that had Dragapult, Charizard, and Pidgeot is that it can get kind of clunky if you're trying to fit in too many Pokemon all in one deck. I also like the inclusion of Bloodmoon Ursaluna for just a little bit more damage at the end of the game. I've replaced Lance in this deck already with Jacq, even though it hasn't rotated yet, because I think that can help get to your Dusclops and Dusknoir, but in the future this may actually be replaced by Brock Scouting. If you've been watching this channel for a few months, you'll notice that I've had a full 180 on using the Duskull line. Of course, there's the benefit of taking a bigger knockout with extra damage, or removing a threat from the bench, but just being able to put yourself down a prize card so you can choose when to use Counter Catcher or Defiance Band can't be overlooked. And we have some gameplay here to show the difference between these versions of the deck. So I started recording this game a little bit late in the beginning of turn 2 when I realized that my opponent was playing a different version of Dragapult. But we, in turn 1, were able to use Arven to get to a TM Evo and evolve to 2 Dragcloaks, which was great, a good start from us. And then our opponent here has a Pidgey down, and then 2 Dreepies, and they get 1 more Dreepy, and then a Charmander down. So they're going to try and get to 3 Stage 2 evolutions, and don't get me wrong, those 3 EX cards that they're going to try and get to here are completely overpowered, so if you get to all 3 of them at once, you're going to have a really good board, but they go ahead and use this TM evolution. And they actually don't. I believe they use Call for Family here to get Fezandipiti out, so I would consider that a bit of a misplay when you could have gotten 2 Dragcloaks on the board, or maybe even a Charmeleon. If they left that Pidgey on the bench, they could have got to Pidgeotto to get on their way to Pidgeot without needing Rare Candies, but they don't. So I'm assuming, since they didn't use TM Evo, that maybe they want to use Rare Candies to, bypass that middle stage evolution, and I'm actually going to do the same. So I'm not going to use this Dragcloak in our hand to evolve the Dreepy quite yet, in hopes that I can actually get to a Dragapult. And I know I can, because I have a Rare Candy in my hand and then an Arven that can get me a Ultra Ball. So we'll go ahead and use Artazon to get another Duskull here, just because my first Duskull could get taken out by a Dragapult attack with the bench damage. But we'll grab that Ultra Ball. We'll get an EXP share because it's a tool and it was there. So that'll go on to a backup Dragcloak. Then we'll go ahead and use this Ultra Ball. So we get rid of Defiance Band since I'm planning to go up in prize cards at the moment, and then get rid of Dragcloak because at the moment we don't need that. We can get it back in the future if we absolutely need to. But we'll go ahead and Rare Candy into this Dragapult. We have the energy in hand and also an Earthen Vessel, so plenty of ways to get the energy. And then I'm not going to do anything else. We're going to save that Iono so we can get more cards in the next hand if we need it. But this Pidgeot's gone. If it was still on the bench, we'd be able to take it out. We're going to put 10 onto the Fezandipiti that they put onto their bench. And I figured these other 3 Dreepy are going to be evolved into Dragcloak, so there's no reason to put like the 10 damage across each of them. In my mind, I just went and put it on the Charmander so that if it becomes Charmeleon, we can still take it out with either our Phantom Dive bench damage or with a Dusclops or something like that. So kind of setting up to take out the only Charmander they had at the time, even though now they have another one. So that was the decision on the bench damage there. Just trying to set up possible future attacks. And we'll see what our opponent's able to get into here with Arven. They're definitely going to want to get into some Drakloaks for draw support, but again, their deck can be a little bit clunky. So seeing that we've taken out that Pidgey, any other Pidgeys they're not going to put down because I could just take them out with a setup Dragapult at this point. And then if they have any Pidgeotos or Pidgeots or things like that, they're just kind of dead cards in their hand at the moment. So I think that's why their deck can be a little bit clunky when you can't use some of the cards that you are pulling into your hand. They go ahead and counter Catcher into a Duskull, and I originally thought that was because they wanted to take out our Duskull Dusknoir options. So if they are able to get to a Dragapult here, they take out the Duskull on the active and then take out the one on the bench. I can no longer take one big swing and take out a fully set up Charizard or Dragapult or something like that. But it turns out they were just stalling a little bit, which we end up from our prize cards. I believe we got this rescue board, and we can just get it right back out of the way without having to pop it or retreat it or anything like that. So we're going to head and rescue board that out of the way, get back to our Dragapult, and then recon directive, see what cards we can get. We have an Iono in hand, so we go with a Night Stretcher here. We'll see what this other recon directive can give us. Looks like Fezandipiti or an Ultra Ball. I think Ultra Ball might have been able to get us to a Dusclops in that last choice if we wanted it to. I don't want to put Fezandipiti down quite yet, so they don't have an option to take that out. Because if they get to a Charizard, that's now able to take out a Fezandipiti and be 2 prize cards. So I'm not going to put that down until I can actually use it. And we'll go ahead and put enough on this Charmander to knock it out. And then we'll put the rest of the damage on the Dreepy that has the energy on it to hopefully set that up for a future knockout as well. So there's a Dusclops that we get from our prize cards, as well as a Buddy PAF. And we still have the option with our Duskull on the bench here to either put a Dusclops on one of those or maybe try and get to a Dusknoir. So we can take out either a full HP Dragapult or Charizard at some point in the future. But our opponent here, seeing that we're a couple turns into the game and they don't have a fully evolved anything, is pretty rough. They have 1 energy on the Dragapult here, the Dreepy that's on their bench. So I'm thinking they probably either want to rare candy into that one or try and use like a Crispin along with an evolution on their active. So it's looking like if they want to attack, it's going to take a little bit of effort here, and we'll see what they can get into. Also, in my mind, they want to wait until later in the game to use the Charizard, because I see they have a Defiance Band on that Charmander. If they evolve it, it's going to be doing 180, 210, 240, 270, plus the 30 for the Defiance Band, so it's only doing 300. It's funny to say only 300 because that's a ton of damage, but that's not enough to take out a Dragapult. But they must not have had any other options, because they're setting up a Charizard right here. They put an energy onto the Drakloak, probably to retreat it, and they're just going to put some damage down. So they're allowing us to put damage back on them and take out a Dreepy on the bench if they're not able to evolve it. They are using Arven here, so maybe they're going to be able to set up a little bit more at least. But we have a 3 prize card lead at the moment, and they're not even able to take out anything quite yet. And we're already kind of setting up for our next attacker with the Drakloak on the bench. Has an energy, has an EXP share, so all I really need is a Dragapult card to evolve that, and we have another attacker set up. So we're sitting in a pretty good spot right now. They do go ahead and get another Dragcloak on the bench, but that's still in range to be knocked out, either by Phantom Dive's bench damage, or if I evolve this Dusclops right here. And then of course, for our final 2 prize cards, if we are able to get to that Fezandipiti, that could be the game. So if we get to a boss's orders in our next turn, we're able to take out a Fezandipiti and knock out that bench Dragcloak, then that's the game right there. So we are pretty close to actually ending this one already. They'll go ahead and do Burning Darkness for 300, and we get to live on. So of course, to start, we'll draw some cards with Recon Directive. Budew's not going to do much here, so we go with Bloodmoon Ursaluna for a possible last attack if they're able to pull something crazy off and get down to it. And with our next Recon Directive, we go ahead and get a Dragapult, which is great. Put down this Dusclops so we can use it. I'm feeling like I might get Iono'd at some point here. If I'm able to take another prize card in this turn, they might Iono me down to 2. So I'm trying to use as many cards as possible and, you know, use my hand as I have it. I really consider not taking this Fire Energy, and I don't remember why. But we go ahead and do it anyways. I think so I didn't get it like Iono'd back into our hand or something like that. I would have the possibility to draw it in our next hand if we did get Iono'd. But that's why I was putting the Fezandipiti down, evolving the Dragapult instead of saving it to the next turn, because I didn't know if I'd get to keep this hand. But we're going to go ahead and use this Dusclops while it's here to knock out their bench Dragapult. Or sorry, Drakloak. And then we'll use some of our additional Phantom Dive damage to start setting up the Drakloak behind it. So we Artazon while we're here. Go ahead and get another Dreepy, just in case I'm able to find another Drakloak for some draw support. And then I use Jacq to get the 2 Pokemon I need to evolve into a Dusknoir for next turn if we're able to keep the hand. But at least get started on this evolution line so that I can just draw into this Dusknoir in the future. I could have popped another Dusknoir and knocked out their bench Drakloak, and you know, maybe that was the right choice, so they didn't have the opportunity to go into a Dragapult in the future, but I thought I would try and save it for a final turn Dusknoir if possible. They go ahead and Recon Directive here to draw some more cards. So yeah, with 2 prize cards remaining, they kind of need to either pick up this Charizard with a Professor Turo or a Penny or something like that, and then get into a Dragcloak or a Dragapult for any chance at doing well in this game. But again, we have on our bench a backup Dragapult that's just sitting there waiting. We don't have any bench damage at the moment. They haven't been able to use a Dragapult attack as of yet. So we're feeling pretty good about it. We've been set up for turns upon turns. Maybe I could have done a better job at getting to Dusknoir quicker. But they go ahead and use a Crispin in this turn. So it looks like they will be able to get that Dragapult set up for an attack. But yeah, the very worst they can do to us is knock out our active for 2 prize cards. And then that's pretty much it. So as long as we get to keep this hand with this Dusknoir, we can easily get the damage we need to knock out a Dragapult. I think if I just popped this Dusclops at the moment, that would put 110 damage. Plus 200 from Dragapult would get to 310, so that wouldn't be enough. We do need the Dusknoir to be able to straight up win this game. So either a boss's orders or using this Dusknoir would end us the game here. They go ahead and take out the active. Since there's the EXP share, we're able to move that over, so that EXP share has actually been huge. I almost cut it from this deck at one point, but it's come in handy a bunch of times. So plenty of ways we could have played this matchup, but I just love how straightforward this deck is between only Dragapult and Dusknoir to do whatever you need. You're still here? It's over. Go watch another video. Go.